Excellent. All right, Enrique. So let's go ahead and start this. Thank you for everybody for being here. It's 2 p.m. Thank you. This is our Leveraging Market Stats to Boost Your Business series. We do this every single month. What we do is we release our stats. The Miami Realtors owns the Southeast Florida MLS, and we release our statistics on the specific schedule each day of the month each month at the same time as Florida Realtors and NER does. And so we'll be talking about the official statistics today, but it's more than just the statistics. It's about where the market is now, where it's going, some of the headwinds that we're seeing, and why this program has been successful. We've been actually doing it for 5 years, every single month. Why it's successful is because of our different Miami leaders. They're the boots on the ground. They have incredible knowledge. And everybody who's on this call right now, everybody watching on social media, we're live on LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook. You guys are in for a treat because we have arguably one of the best data professionals that is on top of the data in South Florida real estate. This is him, and so you guys are going to learn a lot for the next hour. Enrique, how are you doing? And thank you for being here.
Thank you, Chris. I'm super happy to be here sharing with you guys and obviously keeping track of this crazy market that we're in, right, Chris? There's ups, there's downs. We don't know where it's going, but Miami and Southeast Florida continue to show resilience, demand, which is great to see. So happy to be sharing with you here and giving you my take of the market today.
Yeah, we're looking forward to it. And so Enrique, right off the bat, let me go ahead and ask you this. I had a question earlier, but I'm going to scrap that question, and I wanted to talk about what we talked about on the phone just a while ago about the recession that could be coming, and what are you seeing? What headwinds are you seeing in the possible recession nationally, and how that could impact the real estate and in our market here?
Yeah, so look, I mean, I think the alarms have been being sound for a while, right? And it was hard to grasp what was going on. You're definitely seeing some slowdown on the economy. The Feds have held these interest rates steady. They didn't move them in. I believe it was 2 days ago. They had a meeting. They didn't move them down. And the interest rates are creating their effect, right? The question is, do we get that soft landing, right? Out of 10 major indicators you look out there of historical recessions, we're probably hitting all, 8 to 9 of them where it looked like we should be headed to a recession, right? Is it a deep recession or not? Nobody knows. And the truth of the matter is not every recession leads to real estate being impacted. In the last 6 recessions since about the 1980s, if you track this, Chris, only two of them have had an effect within the real estate market, right? Usually real estate is a go-to investment when there is a recession, other than 2008, which was a recession caused by real estate, right? And I think it was back in the dot-com bubble burst where real estate prices got affected, but very mildly, right? So we have to see how people react, but there's definitely that headwind, right? Can the government really pull this off and land this smoothly? In my opinion, we are somewhat living somewhat of a recession around us. You're seeing restaurants go out of business. You're seeing a little bit of a slowdown, right? But nonetheless, Southeast Florida, it's just unbelievable what it's doing, right? The demand, the migration pattern. Everybody wants to be here. The amount of money that's moving into the city is just resilience to see. And the last thing I'd leave a note is in the Fed meeting about 2 days ago, they drew a map, right, of all of the United States and where the highest inflationary, areas are. And Miami came up as one of the highest ones. I believe it was hitting 9% in terms of inflation, right? Which is a sign of the demand, right? And this the lack of inventory, not only in the housing but in many things, right? The cities having a hard time keeping up with the demand moving in, which is very interesting to see. Now, I think we all can agree that it's unsustainable to continue, a track, with this upward spiral. but sales at the same time, Chris, has gone down, and you'll probably indulge us. Where from the peak of the market, we were at what, roughly 43,000 back in 2021, 2022. Chris, is that correct?
Yeah, that's around. Yes, yeah.
Yeah, and now we're what, servicing in the last 12 months 20 something thousand, 25,000 sales. So it was, overall it kind of slowed down a bit, but the price hasn't come down, right? What's really holding us up is that there's lack of inventory. So no matter how much sales come down, the demand continues to be outpace that slowness of the market, if you will, on the transactional side. But I would tell you, we're probably, transactionally hitting what the core market is. This is the necessity-based market, Chris. People getting divorced, people that have to move, people on a job transfer. This is the necessity-based market. I think we've removed pretty much all the opportunistic side of the market. The investors are out of the market, and you're dealing with that. So does it come down more transaction? I find that to be very hard, and this is including nationwide, right? I find it very hard that we would, in a recession, find ourselves going even further down in terms of the transactional volume, right? Price could be one thing, but transactional units moving, I find that to be hard. So I would say we're probably at the bottom of where that gets to, and we should look up at some steam within the market. Miami, maybe not. Miami's numbers are 2019, numbers right now, 2018 numbers in terms of its movements. So we'll see where that ends up. But it's very interesting to see that. And again, for all of you out there watching, not every recession accounts for real estate going bad, right? It's not like that at all, and you have to keep track of those impacts of the recession towards the real estate market.
Yeah, no, that is great. Great information there to start off, and then we got a lot more to come here. So let's go through here our agenda. We're going to go through the February 2024 stats, official statistics released to the media. You guys are getting them before the media. The releases are going out today. Here's a look at our upcoming webinars. If you want to register for our upcoming webinars, YPM President Danya Diaz will be with us next month. And another question that I'm sure will be in the chat is this being recorded, and can I get this PowerPoint? And the answer is yes to both. It's being recorded, and I could send you this PowerPoint presentation. If you could write your email in the chat, I'll make sure to take those all down. Also, if you're on LinkedIn, I know we got a following there on LinkedIn. Thank you to everybody on LinkedIn and also Facebook for watching us. Write down your email in the chat, and I will send you this PowerPoint, which we've loaded it with new graphics here that you guys are going to see them first from our design team. Before I get to that, I wanted to mention that this is the website to write down. If you could only remember one website from the next hour, make it this one right here, sfmarketintel.com. This is where we put all of our stat reports. Hey, we have city reports, we have zip code reports, we have county reports, we have infographics, everything right here, sfmarketintel.com, if you could remember that. And so, Enrique, let me go through some of these graphics that the team over here has designed in the last couple of days, and then I'll ask you a question. So here's a look at Miami-Dade, just a quick overview. Home sales are up in comparison to last year. That makes it 2 consecutive months that are up. Condo sales in the mid-market are also up. That's for Miami-Dade. Let's move over to Broward County. All cash deals are up. Mid-market condo sales are also up. That's for Broward County. Let's look over at Palm Beach County. Single-family home sales are up. 1 million and up. I used to say that was luxury, but not anymore. We have the data from our chief economist that we'll get to, Gay Croatone. And then here's a look at Martin County. Total home sales and dollar volume really increased this last month in February.
Look at that. That's incredible to see how Martin County is really picking up. And I
Yeah.
don't believe, well, I don't believe we actually have coverage in that area. And you're just seeing a lot of people that are getting outpriced of Miami, Chris, and having to move further up north. And the demand is just it's pretty wild. I mean, look at this indicator here, 22% year over year. It's just astonishing to see.
Yes, astonishing. And Enrique, what I wanted to ask you, when on the phone call that we had right before this, incredible insight that you were breaking down Brickell versus Kendall and what you're seeing recently in the market in comparison to, four-bedroom homes and two-bedroom homes. Could you break that down for everybody here?
Yeah, do you mind if I share my screen? I think you
Oh,
have to let me share it, Chris.
yes. I think I have to.
Yeah, so one of the big narratives I always tell agents is you 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 have to be the narrator of the story in your local markets. And local markets work very different than the macro markets. And a lot of what we hear in the national news and the headlines you're reading are going to be on a national based level, right? So for example, I'm going to share my screen here really quick, and I will go ahead and bring up this slide here that I prepped up. So this is an area like Kendall, right? And I'm breaking down all the bedrooms, right? One bedrooms, two bedrooms, three bedrooms, four bedrooms, five bedrooms, six bedrooms, right? And in Kendall overall, the months of inventory on each one of these, right, stay pretty close together for 3, 4 months, 4 months of inventory, showing good, strong demand. Now, when you start getting to the 6+ in Kendall, you start getting 10 months plus of inventory, right? So that market moves, much, much slower. And this is a strong buyer market in Kendall. But all the major product lines are staying well below the 6 months of inventory. If you don't know that out there, basically 6 months or less of inventory would be a seller's market. 6 months plus of inventory typically puts you in a buyer's market, right? To make it easy for you, you should be tracking this. And where we're seeing some headwind right now, here's another snapshot I took. This is Brickell, and we look at the one bedrooms in Brickell, two bedrooms in Brickell. You see the demand, right? The light blue would be what closed, the dark would be what's active. You're beginning to see months of inventory slide up in areas like Brickell, right? Here you have one bedrooms at 9 months, 9 months here for two bedrooms, 11 months for three. Take a look at this, Chris. 28 months for 4+ bedroom properties. 5 bedrooms is at 22 months. But then the 6+ kind of comes down to 12 months, right? So it's very interesting, Chris, when you start getting these narratives and you start breaking down the markets and you understand them by bedrooms, by what's going on out there, because the demand changes, right? It shifts in each one of these pillars and inventory control. So it's important that agents understand this storyline, really crunch your data so they can create that vision of their local market. And when you look at Brickell overall, it's starting to slow down more than, let's say, Kendall, right? That Kendall market of the 2 and 3 bedrooms that I had up here. Give me a second here. Gotta move this out. That you see here, that this snapshot I took you of, you're starting to see that there's still very strong demand with very little inventory left for this type of housing. Considering, Chris, that we have a condo association issue that we're dealing with, right? Not only do our condos, for the most part, don't have the reserves, we're now putting pressure on them through the Senate of Florida, where they're required to not only have those reserves, be 100% insurable, and on top of that, do all the deferred maintenance that they've done in the past, right? So that only puts more pressure on the condo market of the South Florida area and all of Florida, to be honest with you. But it deters developers to go build middle class condo units for sale because it's very complex to get a loan and all the requirements that are there. It becomes very unattractive for the developers to develop those types of units. So it's hard to provide that accessibility for that middle class type of individual that would be buying these types of properties. So, again, guys, macro Dade County data is great, but get into your markets, dive deep, do this is what you're seeing here. Get all the data that you can from the MLS. Look at how discounts behave very differently by just different classes of bedrooms and size of property and whatnot. And I do believe that that's where the agent gets the upper hand story to be able to articulate what's going on with their market and where is that specific market headed. So I'll stop sharing here and give it back to you, Chris.
No, yeah, that was excellent. Get back to my excellent. That's great insight. I think that helps a lot of people out there, and you're 100% right. It's great to know the macro level, but the micro is where the realtor makes becomes successful. That niche.
That's 100%
So
right.
yeah, so let's move on to mortgage rates, which you had mentioned that at the top continues to be a hot topic for real estate. And I checked today, the rate is around 7.11, but we expect rates to at least come down in the second half, and that should open up some more sales activity, right, Enrique?
Yeah, yeah. If actually I could share my screen again, if you don't mind.
Yeah,
I,
yeah.
I think I have an interesting article here that could help us visualize this correctly. Let me move this out here. Um, Fred, 10-year treasury versus mortgage rates. So for most of you out there, you might know that the mortgage market pegs itself off the 10-year treasury market, right? Let me see. Fred 10-year treasury. And the difference between the 10-year treasury where the markets are funding, and this is important that you guys understand this, they use a 10-year treasuries because the average loan time a consumer keeps the actual mortgage or a property, it typically is less than 10 years, right? They either, there's an event, they refinance, they sell, they upgrade, they downgrade. So it's very important that you guys keep track of this because there's basically a difference in the yield of where the 10-year treasury is and the 30 years funding, right? That yield historically, and I don't, this chart doesn't give it to us correctly, but I'll explain it to you. That yield historically has been 1.2 to 1.5% of a difference. So if the rate is at 3%, we would be funding a rate at a 30-year mortgage at 4 to 4.5, let's say, right? That's where that mortgage paper would sell. And the reason why that happens is the bankers tell themselves, well, if I put money at the 10-year treasury, that's what I get out of it. If I put it on a 30-year loan, I will charge a bit more to make a bit more money to obviously move my money towards that type of market, right? That bond market, if you will. Now, that being said, that spread, Chris, today sits at a very high point. It got to the all-time high of the last decade when the Fed was not giving any indicators that the interest rates were coming down because people began hedging the market. So if we're going to fund a loan, why would we give it at 5% if rates will probably be at 8? We're going to hedge that and charge more for it. That still hasn't compressed down to the 1.25, 1.5 marker. The minute that happens, Chris, without the Fed, doing anything else, just keeping rates as is, we should be seeing rates at the 6 to the 5.99 marker. When does that happen? The minute the Fed gives clarity that the rates would come down, and I'm going to stop sharing this, that the rates would come down, Chris, you're going to see that market compress itself and become to the reality, right? And as the Fed, will continue to ease in the deceleration and call it the decrease of interest rates that they're alluding that would happen to, we should see aggressively a rate market come down. But there is still a lot of hope on that compression that I'm talking to you about with the Fed staying where they're at now, which I think is a very interesting thing and will help affordability obviously become a little bit more accessible because it is extremely hard to get yourself into a property nowadays with these values.
Yeah. Oh, that's interesting. Super interesting. So we'll look forward to that. Um, and so this was another slide about, with rates continuing to be at 7%, perhaps it's time for realtors to get creative. Enrique, I know these were used way back in the day, but are you seeing more people use these type of programs?
100%. There's the 2-1 mortgage buy down program. There's actually one that's called 3-2-1. If you're a listing agent, this is very important that you get with a mortgage lender and you go ahead and start utilizing the 3-2-1 and the 2-1 mortgage buy downs. That essentially basically says the following: the seller will give a credit in order for the first year rate of the borrower be 3% below the market, the next year 2%, the third year 1%, and then it would go par to whatever it needed to fund. So if today's rates are, call it 6.5, right? If I did a 3-to-1, I would be able to give a credit to the buyer so that their mortgage starts at 3.5% interest rate the first year, 4.5 the second year, 5.5 the third year, and then it would go to 6.5% for the rest of the term. So it creates a lot of incentive for buyers to move forward on, properties that might not be moving that quickly in the market. And the effect to the seller, it ends up being roughly 4.5% that they give up in order to give these rates. But for the buyer to get the rate that they would need at these levels, they would, or to pay the monthly amount that they would need based on that adjustment, you would have to discount the property 20% to get there. So these products will help maintain a good maximum value for the seller and provide a good service to the buyer. So this is huge. Assumable loans, they exist, but they're one in 1,000. So it's not like there are many. The lenders back in the 80s got rid of the assumable, position on loans. So that's not something you find, but when you do find that opportunity, that is something you should definitely engage with a consumer. And you could do what's called an 80-20, right? Which is, or not 80-20, sorry, assume the mortgage, the original mortgage, and then do a HELOC or do a second loan to help you come up with the full amount that you need to pay the seller for the purchase price. So you bridge those gaps with those types of loans when possible. Buyer mortgage points, if I were a buyer in today's market, buying down rates is huge, Chris. It makes it so much more attractive. Right now, a point or a point and a half on the discount of a mortgage, Chris, gets you a rate with 5 point something on it, 5.8, 5.9. And consumers' eyes, I think, really shine when they're seeing rates, with a 5 point something on them as
Yeah.
opposed to 6 and 7. So that's a huge one. And this last one, the other new lender programs, Rocket Mortgage new inflation buster program reduces home buying mortgage rates by 1% in the first year. Anything that can help that consumer alleviate, it's going to be good. I find it hard to have a drastic price reduction in the Southeast Florida market. I think prices kind of stay stable for the future. But all these things will create the right incentive, right? Which is lock yourself in the home. You could always refinance later. You could always adjust your rate, but getting a good piece of property in Miami, especially being single family homes, it's going to be a very difficult thing as our city has no more land, has nowhere else to go but up. So single family homes with a backyard, with a yard are going to become priceless, Chris. And I do think we're going to be sitting here in about 5 or 6 years looking back, and Palo Alto, where Silicon Valley is, and you have areas like Coral Gables, for example, the value of that will be astronomically high in the next 5 years, Chris.
Wow. Yeah, 100%. I mean, we have the Everglades on one side and we have the ocean on the others. Not a
Yeah,
lot of land left.
that's exactly right.
All right. Yeah, and then so let's talk about some other ways Miami is different from all the other major metros in the United States, and why prices here have gone up for 12 consecutive years. Here's a look at some of our market fundamentals. Let's go right into population. This our incredible design team put several of these new graphics together, but this is from the Florida Office of Economic and Demographic Research. Population is only going up each year until 2050 for all of our counties there.
Yeah, and I think something to bring to light is not only is it going up, but we're attracting a much more affluent consumer, right?
Yeah.
So one Miami migrating, uh, uh, um, one person migrating to the city here could be and have the income of 3 or 4 people from the past, if that makes sense to you, right? So you're trading off this power of acquisition, and these affluent buyers that are coming in. that look at our market and it is extremely cheap, Chris, for them, right? For us that live here, I grew up here. I was born here in 1979. I mean, I've seen this city completely transform itself. We see prices around it, and it's like, wow, this is nuts. This is really, really, really high. But these consumers that are coming down think it's actually very, very cheap, and it's only because their monetary power is much more than your typical Floridian that existed here. So that trade off on population and the type, I think, is an underlying story of what we're seeing and how this whole area is transforming. And to leave one tip there, Chris, that was interesting. I was reading the other day. So Miami-Dade County is has the third largest amount of skyscrapers in the whole entire United States. It's New York with like 200 something, Chicago with 100 something, and then Miami-Dade County with 90 something skyscrapers. And with what we have on the pipeline, I believe we should be passing Chicago in the next 5 years. And that would put us the number two of highest skyscrapers, the most amount of skyscrapers in the United States, guys. So you could see how that transformation begins to happen, with these high rises and what we're attracting in the city.
I love that. I love to put together the rankings, so I'm definitely gonna look that up and put that in. That's great. And then also I wanted to touch on you mentioned the people moving here. I mean, we have this graphic right here. You could talk about Ken Griffin with Citadel and the amount of money and investment that he's bringing just moving that company in headquarters here is incredible. And here's a look at some other companies that have moved here recently.
Yeah. You know something I was reading the other day too, Chris, that I think is interesting for our crowd here. Um, Microsoft, for example, never had a vision to do something per se in Miami, but apparently a lot of these like corporate companies, although they never had a vision to step foot in Miami during COVID, a lot of their employees moved out here to the Florida and the Miami area, right? And a lot of them are forced because their employees don't want to go back. They want to stay here. They're being forced to open up areas here and actually bring large parts of their divisions into the Miami area, which is very interesting to see because the employees don't want to go back. They're actually loving Miami. They love living in Southeast Florida, and essentially they don't want to go. So I think that's a great storyline to understand the dynamics of what shifts a lot of these companies to move and open up here. No.
Oh yeah, 100%. And who could blame them? You come down
Yeah.
here, you get the sunshine, you get the beaches. It's the lifestyle benefits. It's second to none.
Second to none for sure.
Okay, and then what are the states that are moving here? And this is a great research by our chief economist, Gay Corritone. She got this from the Florida Department of Highway Safety and Motor Vehicles. And it's the same in all the data that we're seeing, Enrique. It's New York, California, New Jersey. Those are the three top feeder states, and it's continuing.
Yeah, and we all know California's, issues and whatnot, and you're seeing a huge migration. It's odd to see Texas, right, as being a big feeder, considering that Texas is a great state and has a lot of migration in. They always compete against Florida at being at the top levels of migration. So that's an interesting one to see. And yeah, I worked with Gay on she got this information from the DMV, which was great, and we were talking about how incredible we could now start seeing what in the US is really bringing in the people. So you guys can get to consumers out there that would need your help in moving. But it's amazing. And even a city like Georgia, which is booming, and we're attracting from them, right? We're still that magnet out there on the growth side of migration, which is amazing.
Excellent. Okay. All right, Enrique, I wanted to get your take on these next two graphics. This is in terms of how Miami luxury is kind of changing. It used to be if you have a $1 million property, that's luxury, but that's no longer the case. If you define luxury as the top 5% of sales, in 2003, it will be a $2 million condo. That is luxury, and 2.7 for single family is luxury. And then let me show you the second graphic here is ultra luxury. Top 1% is considered, it can be defined as ultra luxury. So ultra luxury is a $6 million condo and a $7.3 million single family home. What's
Yeah.
your take on that?
No, I think it's in line with the stories that we're seeing out there and what we're sharing here, where you're getting a much more affluent buyer, right? The level of service our realtor community needs to be providing to these consumers has to increase. We're dealing with a completely different dynamics of people in our city, and it's incredible to see that, right? I mean, Coral Gables, it's an area I live in, and I track quite a bit there as well. The movements, and buying something at 900, $1,000 a square feet, it's no longer crazy, right? Those are kind of the averages that are beginning to come and take an effect in the luxury markets, and you see the movements, right? And I'm seeing houses in the Gables, on the South Gable, south of US 1, being built of 20,000 square feet, 25,000 square feet. These are Megatronic, mansions, if you will. So it's amazing. It's really incredible, and I think that it's great. The appreciation that our community has received in the last 10 years is zero to none compared to all the rest of the cities in the United States.
Definitely. Okay. And now check out this graphic. This actually came from our chairman of the board. He asked if we could look in our MLS for the last 2 years real estate transaction. This is residential and commercial. Our members transacted $68 billion. That's an incredible figure and really shows the power of our association and the industry.
That's unbelievable. When you consider, I believe all of Florida has 10 million properties the last time I checked. It's incredible to see, the amount of units compared to that, right? Miami-Dade County does, we're talking 22, 25,000, 26,000 units a year. We're talking probably, at a high point, 10, 15% of a market will transact in a year of its total inventory. And we're transacting 68 billion. Can you imagine what the Florida real estate market's worth? We're talking trillions of trillions of trillions of dollars, which is unbelievable to see how this whole entire state has taken off, especially Miami. That picture that you have there, just goes to place what we've built as a city and the amount of wealth that's in here, right?
Yeah, no, it's beautiful. Uh, all right. So let's see who on the call here knows their global trivia. So we put out every single year around December our international study, and thank you to everybody who answered that call when we put out the survey. But we have the study out, and these are the questions I want to ask you. So if you could put in the chat, we'll see who has the bragging rights at the end, who could get these correct. What is the top foreign country purchasing in South Florida? If you could write that in the chat. How many total countries purchase real estate in South Florida? And number three, what percentage of Florida global real estate sales are made in South Florida? So we'll get to the answers a little bit later. Let's see who got those right. Now, Enrique, let's take a look at median sale price. These are new statistics that we released to the media today. Before we get to that, saw this in CoreLogic Case-Shiller Index. This is for 2023. Miami ranked number one for the highest appreciating housing market in the United States, and that's on CoreLogic, number one. And then so here's a look at our median price sales. And you can see our median prices continue to rise, 17% for single family, 7% for condos. I'll go through these really quickly. Broward, 11%. You're seeing the same trends along the three counties. Enrique, some of the same points that you've talked about before about the low inventories putting the high pressure on prices.
100%. And it's amazing to see. I mean, look at Palm Beach, right? Can you go back, Chris, really quick? You got an 11% hike on Palm Beach. Go back Um, Broward, we got an 11% increase on single family. Go back to Dade County. Look at that, 17%. I mean, what you're really seeing is that what I was saying, right? A house with a yard is going to become priceless, guys. There is no more land. It's very difficult to get good zoning. Yes, you could get some stuff out in Homestead, maybe, but that's even becoming more and more challenging. And I believe the future for single family is going to be a very, very sound and resilient investment to make out there for consumers, and I believe investors as well, if they can get their hands on that land to build condos and townhouses. I do feel overall we could build a lot of them, right? We can assemble land and put together several lots and build up a building and add a lot of units. So I think you'll see more variation in the upcoming future of those markets, simply because we can add more of that. But the single family house, family homes, it's going to be very hard to see, nothing but continued increase. Not at that level. I hope we stop seeing that because it's too crazy. But if it can get back to its 5, 6, 7%, I think single family will always trend well above the condo market, Chris. And it's incredible to see Miami-Dade County jump at 17%, right?
Yeah.
Considering that up north there was a much bigger increase in sales, right? Demand and increase in percentages, where they didn't see the price go up as high as this, right? And we have less and less percentages than they do up there. So that's interesting.
Yeah, it's interesting, and you make a great point that's a big number there, and we probably want it at the 5 to 7%.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
and so here's a look historically. We have it dating all the way back to 1994, and you could see ever since 2011, prices have just kept going up, and then the pandemic came, and it almost like we hit the turbo and went even higher.
We hit the turbo and went even higher for sure.
Here's a look at Broward. Same story, is a little bit more steady there in Broward, but historically since 2008. And our design team also did Palm Beach. So just to take a look at the three counties, you could see similar trend lines, the growth. And then Enrique, I wanted to show you this. It's the same points that we've been talking about at the
Yeah.
inventory, right? We still have room to grow there, and you can see we're below the historical average.
In 2008, to put perspective of this, we reached an all-time high. We had reached almost like 38, 42 months of inventory. It was pretty crazy. It was almost 4 years. And, the argument was we'll never get through that. And because you had so much inventory is where you can create a significant adjustment in price. I'm a believer of the simple equation, supply and demand. And you can dampen demand. The government has done that already with rates. We know we can do that, but it doesn't matter how much you dampen demand if there's no inventory, right? The price is just not going to change. And I think the Fed is coming to realize that we got an issue in the housing market, right? We have an affordability issue that fundamentally it's not fixed. And it comes from 2008, where we had over inventory, so developers stopped building. In the following subsequent 10 to 15 years, developers started building very, very, very slowly, right? Controlling a lot what they're releasing, when they're releasing, because they never want to face 2008 again. So if you consider from 2008 till about probably last year, we were constructing, Chris, less homes on the 50-year than we were in the 50-year average of building and constructing properties in the United States. And now we're beginning to pay that price because it was way too slow. And now we're starting to pick up. Now we finally broke the line of the 50-year average in construction. So we're beginning to construct, more. We're trying to fulfill the pipeline. But the only way we'll see a significant adjustment in price is you got to get inventory, way, way up there. And you could see 2008, prices shifted, 2009, prices shifted, 2010, prices shifted. And by 2011, the market had hit bottom and started pointing up towards its price. And every year since then on out, based on the graph you just showed, you'll see the correlation where prices went up. So when you see this red line that Chris is putting out here, and you're that below the line, it's it's hard to see how you're going to slow down appreciation, right? We need these numbers to go above the red line in order to stop and slow down that appreciation that we're getting, right? And we're far away, and the only way to get there is literally build ourselves out of this, or have a massive condo conversion run into the market, or interest rates drop to the point where the frozen, what they call the frozen market, which is everybody that got rates at less than 4% won't sell. But there's still not, enough of that, in my opinion. We got to mix up construction and balance it out so it levels back out. But we're far away from there. Look at the numbers. It's astonishing to see that.
Yeah, definitely. There is some little good news when you look at the data. The last 5 to 6 months, total inventory has been rising year over year. New listings. I have it in our news release that we're putting it out. It's up for the 6 consecutive months. So slowly, and of course, these March, April, May are the highest when you get the most sales in South Florida. So we will see what happens in the coming months. Enrique, I also want to talk about this. Obviously, there are affordability issues in Miami-Dade, and our advocacy team is working on that in Tallahassee. The state passed the Live Local Act. But when you look at Miami and how it compares to other global cities, this graphic from Knight Frank really tells a story of how much you could buy in Miami versus LA versus New York and all these other cities, right?
Yeah, when you compare it to this, it's amazing to see where Miami's so much more affordable, right? You get 60% more, or 60 times more. What does this graph exactly tell us?
This is how much square meters you could of 1 million of prime property you could buy.
Oh, there you go. Okay, okay. Yeah, so imagine price per square foot, how much cheaper we are compared to all these other places, right? You get so much more bang for your dollar in Miami-Dade County. And that's what I'm trying to get at before with my comment, right? As these people migrate over here, they're used to spending $1 million and getting, 38 square meters in Paris, or 40 in Paris, and now they get 60 here. They're look at New York, you're almost getting double the amount of space than you do here. So to them, it becomes a no-brainer for them to pull the trigger, right, and move forward in acquiring something.
Definitely. Okay. And then another top comment that we get, in the chat, and there's a lot of chatter the right out there, is that, hey, prices continue. You can look at this last month, February, Miami-Dade single family home prices are up 17%. Is this going to be another 2008 where there's a bubble? Enrique, how would you answer that question when you get that?
No, God, it's definitely not. The fundamentals are very, very different, right? I think you allude to that with what we're seeing in the graphs and the inventory. So we're nowhere near there. There is, according to the stats that I see and I read, the amount of equity homeowners have nowadays is above 30%, 35% in their homes. So it's hard to say that people would just throw out their homes and just say, hey, you know what? I'm leaving and I'll lose the home like they did in those years. The other factor you got to see, Chris, is rent versus buy, right? The rent versus buy equation. Yes, it might cost more in some areas to own a property because of the rates we have, but when rates drop back down to 5, you'll see that rent versus buy equation kind of hone in on each other. And consumers don't have much options. In 2008, I remember doing numbers, right? And I was renting a property at that point in time because it didn't make any sense to buy. I would rent a property on the beach at a very, very nice building overlooking the ocean, 2 bedrooms, and you would pay $2,400 a month. To own that same unit, you would pay 5,000. This is 2007, guys, 2008. So you're not going to find anything like that anymore. But nonetheless, that was a difference. It was double the difference to own than to buy. So it's very easy to say, I have an option. I won't pay this and I'll just move and rent and I'll solve my problem, right? But today's market doesn't give you that. So what are you seeing, Chris, when markets are like this? If a recession hits and unemployment hits, instead of the homeowner throwing out the property, since the property has some value, they're going to protect it. They're going to react very different, and they might rent another room. They might move the grandmother in. Whatever needs to be done to ensure that they don't lose that asset. It's going to be done when you have equity, and the banks have done a great job in underwriting loans since 2008 to now. We went from an era where if you breathed and you had a heartbeat, we gave you a loan, right? And now that completely swung to the other side of being very strict, having very few players in the mortgage market other than being Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac. Now you're seeing non-QMs. Now you're seeing, more funky loans, if you will, or more flexible loans for consumers might be the right word, happening. I find it very hard you'll get that swing. The rent versus buy equation is not towards the favor of people doing that, and the equity is towards the favor of people sticking to their house and figuring out ways to kind of navigate the situation. They might lose their job, they might have to rent a couple rooms, whatever needs to happen happens. I don't know if a lot of our viewers know, but Miami-Dade County passed an ordinance a while back where they were allowing and are allowing you to convert your garage so you can rent it out because of the rental markets that we had, or that we've had, where there is no inventory, right? So that's the type of market we're headed towards, where it's hard to see a strong swing on that, and you cannot compare by any means today's market by 2008. Speculation on the housing market, again, back then, the financing brewed the bubble that then created to pop. This bubble was driven by low rates. The fact the government reduced the rates definitely had a lot to do for the increase, but the fundamentals of how people bought, the loan underwriting, the qualification process, in my eyes, overall was very strong. You do see foreclosures might go up a little bit. You're seeing some of that strain on the market, but it's more towards the normality of it, right? On that side, Chris. So that's an interesting factor.
Definitely, yeah. And here's a look at some data on foreclosures and credit score. Um, Wanted to get to this slide here. Why buy a home now? These are some of the that you have talked about. Um, if there is a recession, you could refinance. You just mentioned rent versus buy. Rents are maybe they're not rising as much, but they're still high. Um, and these are some other reasons put together about why to purchase a home now.
Yeah, I think that the stability of home buying continues to show resilience, right? In this, in when rents went up, I think it proved to consumers that renting is not always a smart thing, because your rental price can easily increase. Your mortgage payment, which is the largest portion of what you pay on the property, is stable and locked in for the next 30 years. And there's something that's very important that I think people misunderstand in the power of the housing market, where it's inflation erodes money, and we know that already, right? And as time goes on, if you keep money in the bank account, it's going to lose its value, right? So if I get a loan that was 20 years ago, which 20 years ago, getting a 200,000 or $300,000 loan was pretty hard to qualify, right? The money that I took out from the bank 20 years ago stays the same, right? So what happens to that? Money deflates. My ability to pay off that loan as time goes on becomes much, much easier, because obviously inflation takes place. So even if we have a 2% inflation and you compound that over, a 10-year period, the value of that money went down, and your payment of that becomes steady. So, for example, we'll grab my mother as an example. She's been living in her house for 28 years. The mortgage that she pays to live in her house, which she got that mortgage refinanced probably in the year 2000, it costs nothing for her to live there. It's because she kept that over time. So as inflation goes up, the rental prices increase, but your mortgage value decreases, and what you pay for that mortgage stays at that same level. So in a 10-year period, that difference, Chris, it's mind blowing. And I think that that's very important that realtors articulate that over to the consumer so that they can understand the stability that you create. And then on top of that, inflation makes the property value go up. So then you have a nice amount of equity that goes towards the retirements of the consumer, helps pays the kids' college, helps them, open up a business. It gives a lot more stability, which I think is an important story, Chris, that our realtors really relay out there to consumers.
Oh, that's well said. That's beautiful. And when you talk about generational wealth, that's how you create it, right? For
Real
your
estate
future
has
generations.
created the most amount of wealth in the world, practically.
Yeah. All right. So let's take a look at closed sales, the latest data that we have, official stats. Closed sales, like we mentioned at the top, they're up for total sales. Single families are up, condos are down. That's in Miami-Dade. Let's look at Broward. Broward, negligible decrease in total sales. Palm Beach County, small increase in total sales. Single family are up.
And for the most part, that you see a negative number, that's actually a good sign for the market we're in. And I'll try to explain this to you and give you a different perspective, right? The fact that these numbers kind of wash off and are staying, or okay, we're going negative, but the negative is very low. 1% is not that big of a deal, right? What I'm starting to see is that the markets are plateauing, right? They've come down where they've needed to come down to in terms of the sales and the increase of the Fed rate. And we're kind of seeing now that bottom out, right? The more we see these plateau, the easier and clear it is that we're dealing with the necessity market. And this is one indicator for us realtors that we need to see, because whether the price continues to go up or go down, for us, we need the markets to transact, right? That's the reality of these markets. If we cannot do a transaction because affordability is too high, that's not a good thing for the real estate market, because we cannot transact, right? So the fact we've seen this come down from the peak of 43,000, which was Dade County that we were talking at the beginning, Chris, till now 22,000, and you're kind of seeing it there. That's roughly, what is that of a drop? 36%. I don't remember the exact number, Chris, but it's a drop that was significant on that side of it. And the fact that we're staying here is a good sign that from here on out, the only place to go is back up, right? So the question now is all about how long does this plateau take for it to come back up? In 2008, Chris, I remember we were doing 23,000 sales a year in Dade County, and we dropped all the way down to 11,000. It was a 50% drop. And if you look at the nationwide data, you're looking at significant drops of like 30% on the transactional side, not the price, the transactional side. But I love the that we're leveling out, we're plateauing, we're seeing that nationwide, which puts us in a position that hopefully from here only the market starts going up in transactional, in transaction volume or units. Sorry.
Yeah, no, I love that take. I wrote that down. Negative is good for the market. So I mean, that's a great way to put it, because I know the media sometimes will pick up on these year over year year over year statistics, but you have to look long term, and so I think that is a great
Yeah,
way to
I
look
know.
at
And,
it.
and this particular slide, like you're putting it there, we're plateauing. We're showing signs where this is kind of where the market's staying at, and having predictability and being able to anticipate the markets are very important for all of us, for us to project ourselves and make income, for analysts to project the markets, for investors to come into the market. We need that. These high roller coasters and coming down strong and whatnot are not healthy for anybody.
Definitely. Definitely. Okay. So the name of this program is Leveraging Market Stats to Boost Your Business. And I want to thank all you've got 55 people on the call still, so I appreciate it. Everybody on LinkedIn, thank you for being here. So how can we help our realtors? Well, this is one way, right, Enrique? Market Watch on Matrix. You talked about the beginning, Brickell versus what's happening in Brickell, what's happening in Kendall, about the micro, and you could set this up to hone in on your craft in your micro neighborhood.
Yeah, the micro story is the biggest thing for our realtors to take, and that's the story and flag, call it, that they hold at the industry level, right? Because all the media talks macro. Macro is great. Macro has a story. but it's for the macro. It's not for the micro. And decisions are made at the micro level of each market.
Definitely. And so here's some tools, everybody on the call. Are you using SunStats? You could get city zip code infographics literally in two minutes, very easy to use. Are you using our zip code reports? They are on sfmarketintel.com. We have every single city, every single county, I'm sorry, every single neighborhood. Are you using RPR and Miami Gateway? Here's an example of getting some micro data via RPR. Here's an example of SunStats, which I actually use SunStats to do a lot of these graphics here. Very easy to use, and that's free for all Miami members. All right, Enrique, let's talk about new pending sales, best indicator of future closed sales, and similar trend line, what we can expect, how our chief economist put out a great blog on the time when sales rise in South Florida, and we are about that time, March, April, May. You're going to see those pending graphics. We see it year after year. This is the spring home buying season, so we're going to see sales increase, right, Enrique?
Yeah, for sure. Look, historically, there are graphs that are put out. In fact, let me see if I can bring one up here on my screen that I think really illustrates this. But essentially, the market has literally a heartbeat to it when you look at it at a long-term basis, right? And it's very interesting to see how it goes up, and it comes down, it slows down. Um, I believe I just brought this up here. Give me one quick second here. And it goes up and it goes down, right? Here we go. Let me share this. All right. So here you go. Here's one of these that I got from Florida Stats. You could see the market up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, and it's the beat, right? COVID kind of made it very erratic and it changed the behavior. But now we're beginning to see this pattern come back. And Chris, you're alluding to that in your numbers, right? Starting to see that in Q2, the numbers go up, right? It's the best time of the market. This is the best, quarter, call it, coming into the July time. Why is that? It's because people start looking to move for school purposes. They just had kids. They want to, they want the kid to be part of a school. So they'll start moving. You see the migration patterns happen locally, and it's in that second quarter. And then the market starts easing down and going all the way down till obviously the Christmas time where it's the slowest. And then it pops back up and then comes back down. And one of the things I love to look at is the stability, right? And I look at how much it decreases, right? Because these numbers are very important in looking at the velocity of that decrease or the velocity of the increase, right? These are two very key indicators that you want to see. And again, these are Q3 2023s. I'm pulling up all of 2024 data, but we already began to see normalities in how the market's velocity is coming back up as opposed to what we were seeing here in the COVID era, right? So that's a very good sign of the market stabilizing. And I think you allude to it there in your presentation, Chris.
Yeah, no, that's excellent. Yeah, I told you, everybody on the call, I told you he was the Enrique was the data guy, and definitely that's awesome. I wrote down that quote that you said, "The market has a heartbeat."
It
That's
does.
that's great.
When you look at it long term and you've been seeing it, you're picking it up. So it's good, and I think we're looking at a stronger than normal market, right? We were all expecting this, the velocity not to be there. Although Q3 of last year showed that velocity coming in that I showed you there, you saw more or less 30,000 properties going up on sales on those, springs, which is good. I think we have a little bit of a stronger market than what we were expecting, which is a good sign.
Definitely. Okay, so let's take a look at Broward. Here's a look at Broward. By the way, we have these graphics there on sfmarketintel.com, Palm Beach, and also you'll get this PowerPoint so you could review it at your leisure afterward. I will email it to you as long as you put your email in the chat. Let's take a look at dollar volume. interesting trend lines here. What always blows my mind is looking the amount. This is February, which is March is one of our peak months. So February to have 1.4 billion, 1.1,
And
where are we at? 2.8, almost
$1 billion.
$4 billion in 1 month.
That's pretty nuts. That is crazy. And they're all positive, right? Which is again another indicator. We're talking about volume, so we're talking about price. As price continues to go up, that's what your guys are basically seeing here, right? Prices continue to go up in these areas.
Yes. Let's take a look at months of supply. So basically, how long it would take to sell the properties um, based on the current sales velocity. 6 to 9 months is balanced market, less is sellers, more than 9 months is the buyers. So, and here's a look at how you could calculate it. You guys will have that later, but wanted to get to overall, it's 6.3 months in Miami-Dade. Take a look
Which
at
has
condos.
which
Now, condos is more in the balance market.
Yeah, yeah. That's what we were talking about. Like you're looking at Brickle. And that equation, can you go back to that equation? I'd love to just chime in a
Definitely.
little bit. This, guys, is very important. You guys know how to articulate this. And that graph I was showing you, I'm going to share my screen really quick again, Chris. That graph I was showing you before about the markets. Imagine I do that for every single one of the bedrooms. Like this is your months of inventory. This is exactly what Chris is talking about. So every time a consumer is making a decision to buy, call it a 3-2 and Kendall, I'm doing the months of inventory because it gives me a real sense of that micro story and how to position my offer. And in a market where I only have 4 months of inventory, obviously the seller is going to demand the price. But in this market of 6+ units, I have 10 months of inventory. I'm not going to give the seller what he wants. It's actually a buyer's market. I'm gonna ask for discounts. I know that those properties are lasting long in the market, and this is what gives a professional realtor the upper hand, right? It's really breaking down that data and doing the math. You could share your screen again, Chris. Doing that math that Chris put up here is what's going to make you shine as a different professional towards the consumer, right? So understanding that. And the last point I wanted to give here, you stated how many months of inventory for buyer, seller, balance market? Do you have that here for them?
Yeah, 6 to 9 months is the total
Yeah.
balance.
So this is important because that's a big range, right? In markets of $300,000, my battery might run out here. No, I'm actually fine. Okay, in markets of the average price, call it, a million or 1.5 million down, 6 months of inventory is going to be balanced. But when you start getting to the luxury markets, properties at maybe the 1.5 up 2 million, the ones that Chris were talking about, 9 months might be a balanced market. There is a difference in how inventory moves the higher you go up. And that's why Chris has that 6 to 9 months, right? So anything that's 9 months past is probably going to be more of into a buyer's market. But in the average price, 6, 7, 8 months, you're beginning to see signs of a buyer's market, which is never a bad thing. Buyer's markets might mean that prices stay stable. It might come down a little bit, but they'll stay around there. If it's a very strong buyer's market, 2008, so you guys get an idea, we had 40 months of inventory, 40 months, almost 4 years. Obviously, the price just completely drops because it's an immense amount of inventory there. So I would tell you healthy levels should be between the 6 to 9 months, like you have here overall in the markets that we'll see. But it's important to understand those differences.
Yes, and that's a great point on the luxury market. I have a slide for that. Here's a look at Miami, Broward, Palm Beach. Luxury right here. 12.3 months of supply, not luxury, but 1 million and above, I should say, is 12.3 months. And so that's normal, right? That these properties take a while to sell.
Yes, yes. In the higher end markets, you're going to see more time for sure. That's normal.
Yeah, and here we could break down specific price buckets, and you could see you could break it down into. Let's take a look at 1 million and up. Condos is at 15.6 months months of
There you go.
supply. So that's
So
heavy
that
sales.
there you're starting to command a bit of a buyer market. But that again, again, guys, that's a very general months of inventory. When you dive into those markets, you might see two twos that are going for these prices in these luxurious condos, and there's a lot less months of inventory there. And that's where that micro story, right, Chris, that we continue to hone in on is very important to understand, right? But we should see overall in the $1 million markets, it's starting to balance out in terms of the months of inventories, which there it's 9 to 12 months would be what you want to see for a balanced market.
Yeah. And I love what you showed earlier there about, you look at each uh, number of bedrooms, and if it's 10 months of supply, say, hey, I have the upper hand here, and you play that with the, as a realtor. I think that's incredible advice that
Yeah.
how you're able to use the data to help your business.
And that's what this market's all about, right? This is the beautiful thing about the association that we have. You have the MLS, you can download data, put it in Excel. Yes, you're required to be a data scientist to be a realtor. That is part of the job that we put ourselves to. We got to be marketing experts, data scientists, people, consumer consultants, if you will. It's all part of the gig, but this is a very important craft that I would advise a lot of the agents to understand, to know, to be able to articulate when, where, and how the consumers can make the right decision to move forward.
Yeah, I love that. Data scientist, that's part of what's required. That's great. All right, so here's quarter 4 data, the hottest markets. This is just based on months of supply. Um, Enrique, any of the, well, actually, you touched off the top, great insight on Kendall, but any of these markets that you'd like to highlight?
Yeah, look, those are to me, these are all the local middle class markets of Miami-Dade County. And you guys are seeing clearly, look how low months of demands you have. These markets will not by any means be touched in changing of our price with this amount of months of inventory, right? So these markets tend to go up. Consumers living and looking here, and realtors working with consumers here. This is a storyline that has to be provided because these prices are not going to go. They're not going to move. They're really going to stay, and even at that increase more because this months of inventory, prices only continue to go up. Anything below 4 months of inventory.
Anything below 4 months of inventory? Did we lose Enrique? Maybe his battery was, well, hopefully he calls back in. But here's a look at the hottest markets in
I'm
Miami-Dade.
back, Chris.
Oh, there
Sorry
you
about
go.
that. I guess it was true that it was going to go out of battery, but we
There you
got it.
go. Yeah. All right. Okay, so here's Miami-Dade. So let me show Broward. We have these on sfmarketintel.com. Please go to our website to get all this information. Here's
Yeah,
a look
look,
at,
look at those months of inventory are just astonishing to see in these specific markets, right? Now you look at that condo market, North River Shores there. You're starting to see a bit of a slowdown, right? 6.8 months. Nothing drastic. That's a market where you'll probably see prices they're going to start trending, at the same place. They're plateauing. But markets like Palm Beach at 3.1, you're going to see increase. Yeah, all those markets below 4, you will see prices continue to aggressively go up.
definitely supply and demand. Active inventory. This is we're always watching this metric here. So let's take a look at total list inventory, and it is up. We've seen this. That's a trend line the last 5 to 6 months, but we have mentioned it over and over again. It's still not where we need it to be. But it is good
Yeah,
news that it is rising.
yes. That is a good sign. And as rates compress, Chris, the unfrozen market will unfreeze itself. And I, I like I would like to put this clear for our viewers. The frozen market are those people that financed or refinanced their house at 4% or less, or bought a house at 4% or less. There's obviously no incentive for them to sell, because where are they going to be able to pay that monthly payment, Chris? That's very, very difficult for them to find it. So they got frozen, right? As the rates went up. As rates start compressing, the difference of paying 1% more on the rate might get those people off the fence to say, I'll sell. And I think it's what we're starting to see now come to the market as rates compress. Because we were hitting 8, and we've come all the way down to about 6 point something, which is a big drop, right? And as it continues to drop, you'll get some of that out of the market, which will help inventory come up. And I find it difficult to get to 2019 pre-COVID, where we were at. That was a good snapshot of a good, balanced, strong, market that we were dealing with. I don't even want to say strong. I want to say stable. I think that's even a better word, a very stable market. And I do feel that the inventory levels to get back up there, we need to dampen the demand much more so that it can get back to those levels. And I don't see that happening, because you have the what I call the snowball effect, Chris. And that is, you see your colleague, you're up north in Chicago or New York in the middle of a snowstorm, and you see your colleagues here on the beach, at 5 o'clock swimming. You just say, well, what am I doing here? Let me move down there. And that effect is just snowballing, right? It's getting bigger and bigger, and the attraction and the fact that these people can live, work, and play here, and then travel up north to do what they have to do once a week or whatever. It's showing that it's viable, and it's just creating more and more migration out here. So it's a very interesting scenario.
Definitely the snowball effect. Yeah, I love it. All right, so this is just to wrap up some of the points that we've talked about: inventory, mortgage rates, sales. Let's get to the global study answers. Let's see who got them correct. So the first question: what is the top foreign country purchasing in South Florida? Answer is
With the drum roll,
Colombia.
Colombia. Some people got it right.
Some
That's
people
what
are.
I thought too.
Let me
Yeah,
look.
Colombia is in a huge move into moving their money out of their country for their political reasons. Argentina is still two. It's still number two. It's always on the top five. Venezuela's obviously slowed down, on that side. But look at the Canadians. Canadians used to be very strong, huh, Chris, a while back. So it's
Oh yeah,
interesting to see the dynamics. But as more turmoil hits Central and South America with these communist governments that come in, we obviously see these massive swings. Chile, you know, 2 3 years ago was up on the charts with what happened there. So this is the important part of keeping track of the political situations in these countries. At least for our market here, Miami, and the Miami realtors and participants, it's very important because it drives change, right? It drives numbers of consumers to buy.
definitely. Yeah, just like you said, you see political unrest in another country, they end up moving here.
The
Uh,
benefit, yeah, especially
yeah,
for Miami and Central and South America.
yeah. All right, so let's take
52. Wow.
this. How many total countries purchased real estate in South Florida? Is 52. I don't know if anybody got that correct. Um, but
I got it wrong.
50.
I thought it was going to be in the 30s.
Oh, is that
So imagine.
right? Yeah,
It's
52
unbelievable.
countries.
And
All
I'll
right.
tell you something interesting about that number. I had the opportunity when I was a president of the board of the realtor, of the residential board for Miami. I got to travel with the Miami Associations of Realtors to MIPAM and Dubai, representing the board. And it's just astonishing what the board has done, Chris, to make our city a global brand. Because my expectations in all of this was you were going to see Miami-Dade County pushing and promoting the city, and all these city officials like going to these events and speaking. And who was carrying that baton was the Miami Association of Realtors. It was the only organization that's going out there to all these cities, just putting Miami in front of everybody, giving easy access, and the branding of Miami. It's unbelievable what you guys do. So a lot of kudos to the board, Teresa, for everything she does on that side. And I kid you not, guys, the global brand and what's happening in Miami and transacting, it's thanks to your association that did an impeccable job in bringing out that brand.
Oh yeah, thanks Enrique, and it goes to Teresa, CEO for the last 31 years. She started our global program. It's been to MIPIM. I want to say MIPIM, the largest real estate conference in France, last 12 years. Um, yeah, it's
Yeah,
just
it's
incredible.
astonishing. She had a
And,
It's had a
and
great vision in deploying this and setting it up, and it's the largest market, right, of foreign buyers in the United States.
definitely. And what I think about is I remember Mayor Suarez at one of our Rock the Market events. He started speaking and he said realtors are number one ambassadors. They're the one
Yeah,
that are marketing.
that's right. That's right.
Yeah. All right, Enrique, did you get this one correct? What percentage of Florida global real estate sales are made in South Florida?
Yeah, we're number one, right, by far.
Yes, 47% of all global sales in Florida happen here. And take a
That's
look at number
unbelievable.
two. Look at the difference between number one and number two. It's amazing.
And who's number two? Because I'm looking at it on my
It's
phone.
Orlando
Orlando.
at
Wow, and
14%.
it's a huge drop, huh? Not even close. Yeah.
Yeah. All right, guys. Thank you, Enrique. I know we're over time, but we're almost there at the end. Thank you, Enrique, for so far. Tools and resources. Just want to recap everything for our members. How you can leverage data. Use SunStats. Are you using our co-brand material that we have? We have these top ranking market infant material and top 20 reasons to buy. Are you using Miami Photify? We have free graphics. This is you only could get it on your phone. It's a Photify app. These are the realtors that are using it, taking advantage of our graphics team. So use Photify. Here are market focus reports. We have our infographics videos that you're going to see on social media. We have our zip code and quarterly reports that we put out. We have our RPR. Oh, RPR is a free Miami service. We have our Miami trainers that are there to teach all of our classes and help you out. And I guess the last data that we have for you, Enrique, is the cross-market demand. And this looks at what counties are looking at Miami listings. And no surprise, New York. Look how many New Yorks, and now we have California on here. Amazing.
Yeah, it's incredible to see how the eyes of the whole entire United States are on Miami. You know, we've become the starlight city, if you will, right? Everybody wants to come out here. And it's just a compounding effect that we're talking about, that snowball effect, right? The more consumers realize that you can live out here, there's a great city with great resources, great quality of life, the more and more and more we, continue to get this high demand. And I feel that that's going to continue to shift and add, right, Chris? Because eventually all the New Yorkers that needed to come down here came down here, and some other place will continue to attract, right? So we do hope our city officials work on mass transit. Yesterday, Chris, I had the ability to leave my house. I live by the UM area, by Coral Gables. Walk to the UM train station, jump on the train on the metro, head over to the Brightline station stop, jump on the Brightline, and go all the way to Orlando without touching a car, which was a very, very cool experience to see. And I'm hoping that our city continues to expand its public transportations and provides amazing infrastructure, because the demand is getting so wild that it gets annoying to be in traffic, and all these other, big cities, what they suffered. Hopefully our city officials see it and they can do some amazing stuff so we continue to have a beautiful city.
Oh, that's excellent. Yeah, I have yet to do Brightline, but I've heard great things, and we'll definitely. I want to do it. I want to take that trip.
It's very cool.
All right, so here's Broward. Guys, we told you at the top, it's New York, California, New Jersey. So no surprise here. This is for Broward. Here's a look at Palm Beach. Look at all the New York counties on this list.
Unbelievable. Yeah.
And here's my information. Enrique, we went overtime. It's 3:20. Thank you so much. I think I learned a lot. I know you helped so many realtors look how many participants are still on the call. Thank you for everybody who joined us, but most of all, thank you, Enrique. You were phenomenal.
No, thank you so much, Chris. I love sharing with the community, love seeing our profession be represented correctly. And hopefully that knowledge really helps you guys grow and target your business and helps you improve your customer experience. Take care.
Excellent. All right. Well, thank you to everybody. We'll see you next month.
Bye bye.
Bye, guys.